All right. How about you, Janice?
I am Janice Petro. I work for the Red Lodge Area Community Foundation Early Childhood Coalition. That's a lot of words, but that's what I do. And hey, another thing I just learned recently on Zoom is you can just press your space bar and hold it to unmute yourself.
That does make life better. Okay, how about Dory?
Yeah.
Hey.
Hi, I'm Dory Rowland, and I'm the local collaboration coordinator for 0 to 5 in Lincoln County, and I live in Libby, Montana.
Glad you're here, Dory. How about Ned?
Hi, everybody. It's Ned Cooney. I'm up here in Flathead, Kalispell area, and I work as the facilitator among a bunch of other things I do for the Flathead Best Beginnings Community Council.
Wonderful. How about April?
Hi guys, I'm April Quinlan. I'm in Mineral County, Montana, and I oversee the Healthy Communities Coalition, and I help with our Family Connection Collaborative as well.
Okay, and who else do we have? How about Erin?
Hi, Tiffany. Hi, my name's Erin. I work for the statewide office of 0 to 5. And we're a strong partner with early childhood coalitions around the state. We really are focusing on strengthening the early childhood system, bringing in more private and diversified dollars to Montana, and focus on a lot on advocacy, policy, and research efforts.
Yeah. How about you, Anna? We're just doing a quick intro, who you are, where you're at.
Hi, I'm Anna Semple. I coordinate Healthy Start Missoula, our local Best Beginnings coalition at the Missoula City County Health Department.
Great, I'm glad you're here, Anna. And then 0 to 5 Butte.
Hey guys, I'm currently walking a 4-month-old, so I'm not going to turn my video on to hope that my battery lasts on my phone. Good to be here.
Reasonable.
This is Cass Weber, and I am the local collaboration coordinator for 0 to 5 in Butte, and I also coordinate the Butte Community Council, our early childhood coalition for Butte Silver Bell.
Great. I'm glad you're here, Cass. Okay, and then we have a couple of newcomers. So Sarah, would you like to introduce yourself to the group?
Oh, there we go. Okay. Hi, my name's Sarah, and I work for Early Head Start Child Care Partnerships in Great Falls, and I'm the new chair for the Great Falls Early Childhood Coalition.
Great. Glad you're here, Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Megan.
Hi, my name is Megan, and I am working for the Early Childhood Coalition of the Greater Helena area. I'm actually an AmeriCorps Vista, so I'm here for the next year. Very new to Montana, so I didn't recognize half of the counties that you all said, and I will be Googling those later after this.
That's awesome. Well, welcome, Megan. Megan, can I ask, where are you coming from?
I was most recently in Colorado, although before that I spent about 8 years in Salt Lake City, so
all right.
Still very much in the West.
I was going to say, very much in the West. You're not too big of a shift, but probably pretty different. Well, good. Well, we're really glad you're here. Welcome, and welcome to this group. And I'll just let both Sarah and Megan know this is a pretty open group. We'll have, agendas that we go through, but we really hope that it's discussion based. And today is a pretty packed agenda, but yeah. So if you ever have questions or anything, either shoot them into the chat or just speak up. Lots of folks here are very open and they're very, very knowledgeable and can help. So that's a great way to go about this. Okay, well, let me share out my screen here. Okay, you guys all seeing the minutes page? It's just a Word document up. Okay, great. always gotta double check that. Okay, so we're gonna go through a few different things today, and right now if anybody can just kind of shout out if they would like some more info on any of these pieces, or if they need to add anything to this. So updates today, I'll give an update on the census. I'm sure some of you have heard some of these rumblings, but still a big thing. We've all maybe done a little bit of work on this, but I just want to reiterate some of those things and then talk about date changes. Amdy's going to share out about the Waterford Upstart program. I just got an update today about the pandemic EBT. And so both an update on the advocacy that we did there, but also an ask from the state in assistance reaching families. And then we'll talk a little bit about some of those advocacy topics, child care funding that came out, and we can chat about those, what folks are seeing, if we have any questions that need to come back to the state somehow. And then pre-K updates, we have an upcoming education interim committee hearing, and I have lots of information on that. And then I hope that we have a little space and time to discuss return to school plans and how you all have been involved, or holes that you're seeing in your communities. This is going to look really, really different in each community. And that's why I think we have to have this conversation. There's not a lot of similarities I'm finding from place to place. So hopefully we can line some of those pieces out and maybe offer some resources to one another on that. And then I want to take the end of this. I have dropped off on this practice, but of determining as a group our future meeting topics. I have a couple of suggestions, but I'd love feedback and some votes on that by the end of this, so we know what we're talking about next month. Okay, anything else to add to that group? All right, seeing none, I'm going to stop this share and start my other. Okay, so I just had so many things to share out with you that I made a little bit of a cheat sheet document. Okay, so let's just start out with the pandemic EBT benefits. So back in, I think it was June, we all signed on to a letter that had a letter to the governor that had two different pieces to it. One was about childcare funding and an ask specifically to get some of that care support down into childcare. It's clearly an essential service, and one of the things that many people have come to realize during the pandemic is just how very, very essential it is. We all know that our childcare system in the state is not great to start with. It's not super stable. Not everybody who needs it can access it, whether that's because of availability or dollars. But what we were really focusing on here was how do we stabilize something that's already a little shaky. So we did an ask based on that. That second piece of that ask was something that was outside of what we generally talk about. I was approached by the Montana Food Bank Network and a few other partners to see if we could do some asks based around the pandemic electronic transfer, EBT. So basically, states had the opportunity to opt in to this additional funding, and the funding will support moving money through the SNAP accounts of folks that are already signed up for those benefits. So right now, as of early June, Montana had not processed that application, and it was just money being left on the table. So we wrote this in. There were other folks that were asking from different avenues within a group called Partnership, and state moved on it, was able to be awarded, and it was great. So what they've been doing in that the interim time period in July was figuring out just how to administer this huge project. Because first what they did was any family who was already signed up for, you know, nutrition assistance, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, formerly known as food stamps, they were automatically, that money was automatically moved through to those accounts. And then they coordinated with OPI to find folks that were not on SNAP, but were eligible for free or reduced price lunch. And so they coordinated with OPI to find those folks. And now what they're doing is reaching out to the general public about you know, getting the word out. So let me just move my little screen here a second. We look down here, you can see that the benefit is just a one-time only $330 per eligible child in a household. So if any of you have kids at home, like one of the common narratives I heard when, you know, folks went from regular work, kids going to school, to having kids at home is how much that grocery bill increased, and a surprise at how much your children eat. And so this was something that was really necessary and like well-timed, and I think also a well-administered program in using those avenues where we already had parents connected into this, you know, automatic benefits type of system. So the other piece that I would like to look for here. So here's what the ask really is for organizations such as us. And what I'll do as a follow-up to this meeting is I will send this document that I'm sharing right now on my screen out to all of you, and you can have this announcement, but also this last line in that detail is really important. So families are encouraged to apply here if they haven't already received it and they believe they're eligible, but there is a deadline of September 21st, 2020. So figuring out how maybe we can share that out within our networks and hopefully get as many folks as possible signed up for that. Yeah, any questions about that particular piece? Or suggestions or ideas of how you're going to share them out, how you're going to share it out.
Does eligibility, like if you're already eligible for the SNAP or the free lunches, they're on that. Is there a difference in what that guideline is to be eligible to get this?
Let's look here. You know, I think they tried very hard to make sure that they reached everybody who was eligible. I'm not sure what the loophole would be that they wouldn't have reached, Janice. It's a very good question. But I think just knowing that, I mean, it's a huge system and they tried to pay out a lot of people, inevitably they missed somebody who maybe they should have reached. So just trying to see if there was school lunch program for children to be eligible, must have attended school of March 18th. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm not 100% sure on what the eligibility is beyond those, you know, your SNAP eligible or your EBT eligible, but I think it would be worth
Hey,
going
Steph,
for.
at our
What you got,
school,
April?
it was, our schools were completely 100% free and reduced lunch. So all of the kids at that school, those families were eligible as well.
Wow.
So families that didn't necessarily have SNAP benefits for those types of things, that was part of the availability as well. So if your school's 100% free reduced lunch, any family that was attending that school on March 18th should have had access to that.
Heck yeah. Okay, April, do you know how they, if they notified, I mean, did the school district just notify our parents?
Our schools sent out letters to all of their people, letting them know, offering for them to bring it in the office and get it all done and those kinds of things. And we put it out on our coalition stuff and all of that for families to access it.
Fabulous. Okay, well, there we go. So thinking about, you know, how you can get that out, I think that's a great, you know, just making sure we're tucking in all the loose ends on that piece. So good work on providing more nutrition assistance to people. Okay, and then I think, let's see, I'm going to go ahead and throw this over to Amity actually now. Amity, are you ready to talk about your piece?
Sure.
Great.
So one of the things that we're a part of here in our community is the campaign for grade level reading. And through that, we receive different resources that are available. And the goal really is to increase the number of students who read at grade level by 3rd grade, since that's such a key benchmark for a student's success later. So one of the resources that my colleague found out about was this Waterford Upstart program. And I had heard about it previously, but didn't realize that it applied to Montana. So it's developed through a Department of Education grant. And it's a program that they can offer for free because they have such a giant grant to administer this in different states, particularly kind of in this region, adjacent states to Montana. This is the first year that Montana will be participating in it, and they have a partnership with OPI to have 200 families participate in this curriculum for 4-year-olds. So it is very specific to these birth dates. You have to be a child who hasn't started kindergarten yet and is a pre-K student. But the real purpose of it is to strengthen the skills in reading or math and science. And so because of the grant money that they've received, they're able to offer it completely free along with support for accessing the program. And they're trying to enroll 150 students or 150 participants by August 31st. So it's right around the corner. They hope that families can get started in September. And it includes a free Dell laptop, and it includes free internet. And it also includes a coach, like a family liaison, who will guide the family, the parent, through the curriculum with their child every day. So every day they'll work with their child on one of these 2 curriculums, and the child is assigned a curriculum at random. They don't get to choose, but it shows the statistics from the other states where this has been a curriculum has shown that there's significant growth in either area to help develop the competencies that kids need before they get into school. And it just requires 15 to 20 minutes a day of going through that curriculum with your child. And so one of the things that if families want to get enrolled, they can go on waterfordupstart.org, and it looks like through that website that there are certain requirements that, like maybe financial requirements or something like and that's not the case for Montana, because they just really want people to be enrolled and to take advantage of this program. So for example, rural is one target area that they're looking for, but they say at this point they'll just take whoever is available and any parent that's willing to work on the curriculum with their kids. And our whole state is basically rural frontier. So that and any of the economic categories either don't apply to us. I double checked because I had a meeting with the advocate last week, and he was just walking me through all of this. So if anybody's interested, please email me. I can put you in contact with that advocate if you have an avenue in your community to promote this. And another thing I was thinking, I was putting out a message in Write by Text. I typically don't put messages across the state unless they're pertinent to something that's a resource, but I thought I could filter this for just the 4-year-olds, and in that case it would just be pretty specific to our parents of 4-year-olds. If this group, since a lot of you are already partners on Write by Text, if you give me the go ahead, I can just go ahead and schedule that, and that would be one more way of helping parents get enrolled. So just wanted to try to generate some interest because it is such a good program. And they said, like, one of his instances that he used for connecting to free internet was, I think, somewhere in outside of Salt Lake where he's from. They actually installed a solar panel on a house so that they could download internet access they go to great lengths to try to figure out what issues the family has in experiencing. And then also with the laptop, it comes with 3 additional logins. So the laptop can be used for the family for bolstering. They can use the same curriculum for other kids in the family for bolstering their competency level. And then they can use the laptop for family needed things like job searches, and they get to keep the laptop. And it just seems like a really, they're really trying to help the families with the advocacy piece in the education of their little one. So just wanted to make you aware of that.
Very nice.
Any feedback
Thanks for sharing that.
Offering that as a state resource? If people are okay with that, I can kind of see through a thumbs up or something. If you guys are okay.
Yeah,
okay,
definitely.
great. Thank you.
I would just like to jump in too. I think, especially now during the pandemic, I think it has a different role to some degree, but I know in Missoula there were a lot of concerns about it last year when it first came out, as far as it being seen as a replacement for in-person pre-K. Like this pilot was kind of getting a foot in the door for as a potential replacement down the line. So I think just maybe investigating as a early childhood community what the bigger ramifications might be, and kind of talking to people about that might be helpful. The laptop and the access to education right now seems really important because we're not in a position where a lot of kids can go to in-person. So for whatever that's worth, I know there was a lot of conversation last year. But thanks, Amity.
Yeah, thank you.
Amity, do we need to have them reach out to you first before they go to that Waterford link there?
No, they can facilitate, they can do the entire thing through them directly, but I just was concerned because they didn't really specify on that site that it could be any family, you know, who has an interest. And so
okay,
if there are questions, we can talk them through things.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Amity. That'll be an interesting program to see if they can. I've been actually surprised that they've had such a difficult time recruiting, but hopefully that continued push. And I also think that Anna is correct. There's a lot more people that are pushing that will look very appealing to as our circumstances changed drastically from about 6 months ago for in-person learning and opportunities. So hopefully that gets to some families, and I think that access piece ought to be, that's a pretty neat way to provide some equity in a system that generally is not in terms of internet access in rural places. Okay, all right. So I'm gonna go back to my super sharing document. And talk a little bit about the census. So probably some of you know, there was at the beginning of the pandemic, the census date was extended to October 31st for the end of that. And that really was in response to the inability of in-person census workers to reach people in their homes. So they delayed that. I think that was for a total of 5 or 6 weeks, and had the idea that, they would be able to make up for that later in that extra month in October. Recently that has been rescinded or revised, I guess, back to an end date for the census on September 30th. This, as we've talked about before, this is a pretty impactful change. Like we're behind in the count to where we were 10 years ago currently in most counties, and then also statewide. We have some pretty big, there's the funding pieces that are all tied to that, whether that's schools, roads, post office stuff, it turns out, is tied to some of these numbers. So different funding streams that come in and support just a huge part of Montana's infrastructure are all tied to this and the ability to get these done. Additionally, we have quite a few they call them historically undercounted populations. So people in frontier or rural places are already within that. Specifically, very small children. So young children is one of the undercounted areas. Also, all Native American, American Indian populations across the United States are historically undercounted. And there's quite a few different reasons why. I do know that there is a very big push by a couple of different organizations in the state, including Western Native Voice, who has done quite a bit of work on the ground in person on the reservations, and they're getting some good traction with their outreach. But general outreach to folks who did not do that original kind of self-report, I guess it would be, through either the piece of paper that came in the mail, online, or via phone. That's where the outreach is now. So folks have started visiting people that were not in the self-report. I've heard some discouraging updates that that data has not been kept up with. So people who have completed the census are getting door knocks, and that's frustrating. It's great that it's overlapping that way, and we're making sure, but it's also really frustrating because we know that that time frame has just shrunk by 31 days, and there's only so many hours in a day for census workers to reach out to people. So being really targeted and having up-to-date data to know who has not responded is pretty important. But this is where we are. We can do very little about that in our positions. But we can still remind people, if you have not completed the census, please do so. And there's still time to do that. I'm just gonna screen share real quick so we can all look at the map together. And which I really love maps, but this map I love really a lot. So we can see that our overall response rate is 57.3. I don't know off the top of my head what our response rate was last year, or last census. But I do know that we're not on target with the timeline. Another thing that should be pointed out, like this is tied to a lot of funding, but it's also tied to another congressional House seat for the state of Montana. So whole other vote in Congress. Big deal. So that right now is not looking promising. And whatever you can do as a coordinator, and I will say this as a person to a person, whatever you can do as a person, do a little outreach. My family is full on annoyed at this point because they're like, we don't need to do this. And I'm like, yes, you do. And I will fill it out, and you will push the send and we will be done with this. But whatever we can do. So on here, sometimes having data that looks just like your county, that is from your county and area, this is all available here. Go in, check it out, look and see how many people have responded on the internet, and then also compare that back to what that final 2010 self-response, like right here, Ravalli, we can see is very likely gonna surpass their 2010 response, which is great. So thinking about this, let's see if there is. Yellowstone County, whoop, whoop. Good work team down there. That is pretty spectacular. You're edging into that 2010 metric as well, so that's some good stuff. So I would encourage all of you, if you get a chance to share this out with people and just send out that reminder once again. There are a ton of things that are really pressing right now, but this is something that takes a little bit and can help us all in the long run. So any questions on the census stuff right now? All right. Okay. And so I think that does it for our general updates. I want to throw it out to the group and see if there are any other updates from you all. All right, well, we will continue on with my mega document of good news. Okay, so last week, I think that was just last week, time is difficult right now, we got this awesome announcement from Governor Bullock that $50 million will be invested into maintaining and expanding childcare in the state of Montana. So that second piece of that advocacy letter we sent, this is a fairly good outcome. So we're really pleased with this dollar amount. We're also so far like preliminary understanding of how this money will come out. Very similar to the first round of CARES Act funding as kind of grants that will be run through the Early Childhood Services Division. So $30 million in grants to maintain and expand. That application opens on August 19th, so tomorroro. Yeah. And then 10 million for families of special circumstances requiring in-home care. I think this is a like really wonderful consideration that they put this in there. There's a lot of families that don't have choices right now. You know, a lot of us have poor ones and then some have none right now. And so I was really happy to see that that was considered within there. And then supplemental payments to all licensed and registered childcare facilities. The childcare resource and referral agencies across the state will be doing a lot of the legwork on this. So if you are interested in, you know, if you get questions about this or whatever, refer folks back to your childcare resource and referral agency for sure. They are definitely the experts on this, granting opportunity, and yeah, have a lot of other resources right now that'll be really helpful. Did anybody, I know last week there was a town hall and I was unable to be on that. I'm wondering if anybody else on here was a part of that.
This is Cass.
Bree, would you want to? Yeah, were you, Cass? How did that go for you?
It was really helpful. I mean, they had a lot of time left to answer questions. I think there's tons of questions left about how these grants are going to be distributed and what the qualifications really are. But ultimately, what's really important is just to get the word out as much as possible, because all the money has to be spent down by December 31st. So,
okay.
Or it's gone. So we just have to get the word out as much as we can. But details are hard. Applications will be out Wednesday through your CCRNRs, whatever region you're in. So tomorrow morning, there should be links to all the applications that are necessary, whether you're wanting to start or expand out of school care, or if you're a family needing that extra support with special health needs.
Nice. Thanks, Cass. Oh, yes, it did. I mean, was anybody else on there? Has any feedback about it?
Yeah, and for me, being new to the child care world, it was really helpful to gain a more broad understanding of the overall processes, and to just kind of see how all of it interrelates across the state. So I found it beneficial from that standpoint.
Fabulous. How about you, Anna?
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add. It was really informative. I think a lot of the details are kind of still being worked out behind the scenes to this date. So, but I think Jamie Pelagi was answering questions, and she did a really nice job of addressing the questions that came up and taking note of others to answer later. I think some of them, the money for vulnerable families, I think the R&Rs are still trying to figure out exactly how all of that gets decided. And yeah, there's some just different things with unlicensed, school-aged providers that they're working out in our community. But it was interesting.
Yeah, I think it will be really interesting, Anna, that monies to vulnerable families piece. CCR&R was not my first thought of who would, administer that piece. And so wondering how that'll, roll out, whether they're going to, collaborate with the Children with Special Health Care Needs Division, or what the process was. Did you have any sense on that?
Yeah, well, I know they're going to be staffing, or like kind of having group meetings where they look at these. And so I asked if our Part C providers would be involved, or I think it's interesting because on one hand, it's family, could be a family member with healthcare needs. So it could be an adult that's going through cancer treatment or what have you. And I think they have a lot of research on what adult conditions are more vulnerable.
Okay.
Children's conditions, I think, are anybody's guess in some ways. There's not a lot of research on them. So, we've been told that heart conditions are not actually putting kids at higher risks, or, so it's not very straightforward with children. And that they can guess in some cases, but they don't have numbers. So I'm just really curious. This is all me as a human wondering some of these things. But if I am, I'm sure there's a lot of other parents too, and I'm sure the systems are working it out. So We'll see. But
Fabulous.
they're working hard at it, I know.
Good, good. Those are great thoughts. How about you, Ned?
I might be able to jump in a little too.
Yeah.
Oh
I
yeah,
just had a
jump in, Cass.
I work at a CCRNR.
Oh, Cass, go ahead.
Yeah. So they've gotten the applications out for the families. They're really, really, really short. They're half page for the family to fill out. And really very simple. And, you know, I think the CCRNRs do have a question about how to determine eligibility, but at this point, encourage people to fill them out as much as possible. I think I did the math just because I was curious. There's like 2,500 of them to give out to families across the state because they're $4,000 a pop across the board. That's what every family is going to get. So you also might qualify for this if you actually don't have childcare available. So there's a checkbox. If you live in a county where there actually is no childcare, you might qualify automatically. Every family might qualify automatically. So it's worth pursuing that just as well.
Okay. Great. Thank you for those insights, Cass.
Yes, do you have is there like a live link that's accessible, or is it just based on your regional CCRNR that's disseminating it? Because I'm looking at the state page because I'm trying to link information to the 0 to 5 website, and it says that the application information will be made available tomorrow.
Yep, it's going to be tomorrow. It's going to be both state. What they said on that call was that it would be on the state site and every CCRNR website. So we're working on making sure it's available to everyone across the board through their CCRNRs, but there should be a place, but I don't know exactly where it's going to live. Tomorrow we'll determine that, I think.
Okay, thanks.
Hopefully somewhere accessible. How about you, Ned?
I wasn't able to attend. I just had a question. Does anybody know more about the $30 million process for the after school or out of school time? Because that's not connected through the CCRNRs, from what I understand. So just whatever insights anybody has into that, in addition to what we've already heard.
Ned, as far as I heard on the call, it sounds a lot like some of those other business support grants where you don't have to be licensed. And if a business wanted to offer, I mean, I was just hearing an example of an engineering firm who had an open room that wanted to in-kind to their staff. And if they wanted to perhaps hire someone, then the business could then apply for a grant to provide that service to their staff, as far as I understand it. And these business grants have been pretty simple too.
Okay. In other news, guys, I'm starting a new after-school program at my house tomorrow. So
whoa,
you would be eligible.
You may be eligible, Ned.
I think
this is great. You're gonna have some real insider information for us.
Ned, what I think I heard as well when I was thinking critically about how this could work is you can't contract it out. So you have to hire somebody on staff, as far as I understand, at your business. So that's a detail that Anna Sugarhead, yes, I think I saw. So that was new. So as you work to open your business, keep that in mind.
Go through the hiring process quickly. That's what we're saying. All right.
I might have a little offer here too. I can
jump in, Cass.
So I think also it is available to school districts. I talked to our local 4-H who has an after-school program. They're giving it out per estimated attendance per day per child. So it's a flat rate per kid per day that you estimate for the month ahead. And they're going to have some sort of checking system to see if you actually have that attendance and disperse those funds for that. What I've heard, and I don't know, don't quote me on this, is that it's $35 a day per kid additionally. And then if it is a licensed child care that's seeking this, they can also access the Best Beginnings for kids that are qualified, that up to the Best Beginnings out of school care rate at the beginning of the pandemic. So that still applies as well. But this is just a little more open to all out of school and unlicensed places on top of licensed care.
Okay. Well, I think it'll be interesting to see what comes out tomorrow, what guidance and then the applications come out tomorrow and how it goes from there. But definitely your point of contact for anybody in your area is your local childcare resource and referral agency. So point people that direction in a rapid manner. All right. Any other questions on that before we move on? Nope. Okay. Well, the next section, I wanted to talk a little bit about pre-K and what is going on with that. This coming Thursday, the 20th, is a Education Interim Committee meeting. Got a little cheat sheet here that I'll send out to all of you so you have these links. It's a virtual meeting like all of them have been in the last few months, running from 9 to 12. The last I checked on this agenda, pre-K was up 10:45. Or up at 10:45, that conversation. So I've attached here the agenda for that meeting. That agenda has all the information you need in order to get connected to that. You do need to send an email to Pad McCracken, who's the coordinator for that committee, and he'll get you lined out with a link. It also talks a little bit about how you can participate and give testimony if that's something you all would like to do. There's an unofficial draft copy of the bill, as well as this really handy document that makes all of this much easier. And it talks about ABC options. And really those options are about how much community or provider or community-based provider interaction will be part of the requirements. It would just be a recommendation. So all of the pre-K, like for each one of those options, it's all for 4-year-olds only. It's an optional piece for both the school district and also for individual families, not a mandate of any sort. And it's all based on A and B funding. So that attendance funding that comes through, that's, you know, how schools get their school funding gets determined, or one element of that. Yeah, so the 3 different pieces, or the 3 different options are really moving from it's a recommendation and allowable that you could contract out with, say, the local Head Start, to be the pre-K provider for your school district. That also within that, any other star 3, I think, is one of the recommended levels, or is the recommended level. So star 3 or higher provider could be part of that contracting process. And really, what that option does, encouraging those community providers as, and you know, those contracts as a part of this does, is it allows, we hope that it allows more school districts to take advantage of this. You hate to see a school district that would very much like to offer pre-K, but due to space limitations, whether that's, we don't have another room, we have, you know, temporary outbuildings currently to serve the kids we already have, we don't have space to add this on, or lots of schools also have space where they don't have, it's not appropriate for a 4-year-old, whether they, you know, don't have tiny toilets or sinks that they can safely reach, any number of things within that. So there's these environmental concerns, appropriate play area, all these different things that in order to help more people offer this, if we have more collaboration with those community-based providers, we have that option for that. Additionally, many of the folks that are already trained within early childhood education in the state are employed in these community-based providers. And so the experts in teaching these very little people are already employed within these places. And so figuring out how this can be offered to more kids is really the, I would say, the crux of this bill. So it'll be an interesting discussion. Yeah, there was also a page that has the cost estimates. I didn't find that as entertaining, but I'm sure others will. But yeah, any conversation or discussion on this piece? And really at this point, what's happening is they're refining this as their committee bill and moving that through the process of making sure that this is a bill that they will push forward within the legislature. Those are very strong bills because they have already been vetted by a committee and they already have buy-in. So it's kind of it's an important process. What you got there, Ned?
So I just haven't had time to kind of delve into the bill, and wondering if we know how different it is from the last round that didn't happen, you know, that failed in the legislature. And part of the reason I ask is, I mean, that's the substance of it, but then I've heard that the process of it was not inclusive enough of school people, whatever angles you want to take on that. Mm-hmm. And that's like the depth of my knowledge. So do you have any insight into that stuff, Stephanie?
Yeah, I sure do. Yeah, so preschool in the last session, like that was a dirty word by the end of it, and there have still been feelings about the word preschool in this interim commission. It has been a tough thing to come back from, and I do think you're correct that there was a really big misstep in not including schools more directly in this. In this current bill, the funding for this all runs through school districts. So school districts, really maintain that local control status for adding in pre-K pieces. But there is the opportunity to contract those out to community-based providers who may not be part of the school at that time. So whether that's Head Start or another Star 3 or above provider in the community. What that process looks like in every community, that's again, school board probably determined. So how that would roll out, I don't particularly know, but I do think there has been much more thoughtful inclusion of the school districts within this particular committee. And yeah, I would characterize that way. Yeah. But yes, you are right. That was a giant flame out at the end of the last session that had a lot of hurt feelings. So always keeping that in mind. And I think that the folks that have worked on this have done so. Okay. Any other specific questions on that one? Okay. Well, let's jump into this discussion a little bit more. I would really love to hear how it is going in different communities with this return to school. And so we know that has a lot of different pieces to it. What is the plan for your school, the schools in your area? What are the different options that they're offering? And then what are the different ways that you're seeing collaboration or coordination amongst different entities, whether those are schools, private schools, childcare providers, after school programs, all those different things. And then thinking even about, businesses, as Bree pointed out earlier, that engineering firm that's like, hey, maybe we can offer this and provide some kind of pop-up support here. So yeah, I would just love to share out from folks about this and see if we can find some similarities or maybe some places where we can learn from each other. And I'm going to take copious notes. Anna, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, there's a lot going on in Missoula. Most of our rural schools are going back, I think, full-time, though I think it varies. Our city MCPS school district, the largest district, is looking at a hybrid model. And so what has been happening with our child care co-ed task force, Grace has really taken the lead on connecting connecting after-school programs and other programs that are interested in providing daytime care and some educational support potentially for students when they are not in the school building. And they are creating a webpage on our Joint Information Center COVID county-wide information page, where you can click on the name of your school and it will show the link, the list of programs that are supporting, you know, off day times for your kids that are school specific. And then there will also be a list of programs that are just taking kids from wherever. So the idea is to try and funnel kids from the same school into the same after school or out of school time programs so that you are limiting exposure, and contact tracing would be easier. And so hopefully they're going to be able to classify it that way. I think that webpage will be live shortly. I think the school district is kicking in a little bit of funding to help have somebody coordinate some of this, because it's going to be a big job to maintain. There may be some regular childcare programs that are going to be on the list, but then if they only have a few slots, they may fill up quickly and need to be removed. So it's going to be a constant communication need. But it seems like it's pretty well laid out. So I think it's just a matter of how much coordination this will need and how much changing back and forth if schools shut down or reopen, or, you know, all of the back and forth. So that's our main school-age child update in Missoula.
Thank you, Anna. That was a lot. When I looked at you and asked you, I was like, yep, just all of that. Throw that out there. All right. Well, thank you for that. And who else wants to go? Now that Anna has broken this for us. April, what are you guys doing in Mineral?
There we go. As far as preschool goes, actually, it was funny. I was texting the girls as we were doing this, talking about the Waterford thing as well. But all three schools right now are offering pre-K, from what we understand at the moment, which is great. One of them is going to be doing.
Yeah, you guys have.
Yeah, and a lot of them.
Sorry, could you?
No, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was like, oh yeah, you guys have the incredible opportunity there that is not common in many other places with the three pre-K.
And they're really creative with their funding at the schools. I don't ever like to say too much, because I'm like, no matter what they're doing, I'm like, just keep doing what you're doing, because we're getting good pre-K. So through our ECC money, on top of that, we were able to help support all three preschool programs this last year. So for St. Regis, we helped provide supplies for the program that was needed. For the Superior one, we were able to get a whole curriculum. We partnered with the school to buy a curriculum for the pre-K classroom. And for Alberton, we actually did a whole sensory type thing for the hallways and social development and all of that they were interested in. So we're excited about that for this school year, because all of that will be utilized, which is great.
And so what, for coming back to school this year, what are all the different schools, what are your three schools doing?
Really
are they aligning? Yeah.
Every school is a little different, but all three are going back in person as of right now. And preschool will be included. They will start a little later. And my understanding right now, they may have preschool there less days, but I'm not 100% sure. I don't know that that's been fully decided yet. But so in all the schools before that, it was at least 4 days a week that kids were coming, like a half a day or so for pre-K, because sometimes they had to have a morning and afternoon class type thing. But so right now, yeah, we're coming back in person. They're trying to split the numbers down a little bit more and figure out social distancing, but trying to still incorporate that into learning in all the schools right now.
Okay. Are all of them, so this is a question that I have, are all of them offering an online option?
Preschool, I'm not 100% sure. That's a really good question. For the other grade levels, yes. Yes. So I don't see why they wouldn't for pre-K, but I also know how fun that is to try and get a preschooler to sit in front of the screen. So that's
how possible that is.
And definitely update it all. But yes, as far as I know, we're doing it for everything else. So I'll see if they're deciding to do that for pre-K or not.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How about you, Dory? Do you know what's Lincoln doing? And I think, the variety of high schools or 2 high schools and how many other elementaries. I don't even know how much there are now. So what's going on up there?
We have several smaller communities and smaller school districts, but from what I'm gathering, it looks like most of them are going back in person with online learning options. Obviously doing a lot of work to come up with appropriate safety practices and all of the things that other people have mentioned, different timing for leaving, building, masks being worn, a variety of different safety measures in place. And I believe Head Start and our preschool are both going back. I need to double check on that. And I'm not quite sure what the online learning options might be for those.
Great, thank you, Dory. That'll be interesting to see. How about Janice? What's going on down in Red Lodge?
Throughout Carbon County, each school's kind of doing their own thing, but they are, as of now, so they all have their tiers of plans on what to do. As of now, the county numbers are low. So everybody, they're planning all going back. I think masks are going to be required in some of the schools. Some it's just a recommendation. And I am not certain about what online, whether they're offering online at this time. I think it's something where at this point where we're at, we're going back in person. And then if things escalate, then they'll pull back. And so that's kind of, they all have a tier of what to expect for the kids.
Okay. Great. And I should have asked Dory this question too, but do you know, is there any groups that are standing up to help with that coordination of out of school time care, whether that's a child care need or the after school kind of programs? Is there anything in either Lincoln or Carbon that are kind of figuring out how to best coordinate that?
Our out of school, after school is the Boys and Girls Club. That's the only organized program here in Red Lodge. The counties kind of all do their own thing. Not the county, the different towns, the different schools. I know through the summer, the Boys and Girls Club, they only took kids who had been enrolled during the school year, so they did not open that to the public. So that was kind of, so that really is the only option. We do have the one preschool program that's privately run. They are planning on opening. They have a larger space to be able to spread out. And one of the daycare centers that was closed during COVID is getting ready to open. I think tomorrow is their first day back.
Great.
With a lot of prep. And we did have one childcare program that's just not coming back. So that's where we are, kind of with the out of school care.
Thanks, Janice. How about you, Dory?
So I believe the Troy after school program will still be going, but I need to double check on that. And I've been reaching out to Jennifer at the Nurturing Center in Kalispell, since they're our coordinators for childcare. We're meeting this Friday to check in and just kind of see if she has more information about the different levels of childcare that are being offered in the community. So it's something that we're exploring.
Nice.
I can get more.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think this is just going to be one of those pieces as we all kind of move back in and understand where demands are, how many families are choosing to, use distance learning, and then in addition to that, as that shifts, as COVID infection levels shift, how are we able to, match families up to those necessary resources as things change? And, just talking through this, I'm thinking about contrasting like Missoula and Anna. There's so many different options and opportunities there, but then I think to Janice's level, or even Lincoln County level as well, folks are, that's kind of predetermined in a lot of those places. So, they're Eureka and then Troy, and having these kind of pockets already determined of like, well, this is the one place to go for this court. So that level of coordination may not be super necessary, but figuring out, how do we help families transition into places where they haven't been before could be a piece of that. So, okay, well, thanks so far for sharing. Who else wants to share out about what's going on? Oh,
I can share from Yellowstone County. Our Billings Public Schools are going to in-person with an online option, but you have to sign up for the year if you're doing the online option. So it's my understanding as of yesterday that they've had 2,000 students sign up for online, but we have 22,000 in our district. So it's still going to be a lot of in-person. And so that's causing some scrambling, because I think they were hoping for more to go online. But in terms of coordinating with the after school programs, then it makes it easier because it's the typical traditional school day model in a way, but that is hard because some of those programs are still struggling to find their staff. And I know here at United Way, we run our own after school program at a few different schools where we utilize school sites. And so trying to accommodate social distancing in the after school so that we're not bringing together kids in an unneeded way, so to keep not do a lot of unneeded busing and things like that, where we might have utilized that a little bit more. And then I also was trying to coordinate with our other programs in our community for after school just to see what they were doing. And I was working with our CCR&R, and then obviously they had to put a pause on working with me on that because they had to transition to trying to get these applications ready for the grant. So literally an hour before our meeting last week, when I was going to present all of the interviews that I did with out of school programs, then I got the call and it's like, we have to cancel the meeting, abort right away. We'll pick up later. So it's kind of left us in an unfortunate place in terms of coordination, because it's kind of hard for me to do that on my own, but it's such a necessary thing for parents. So I'm having some internal meetings here to see how I can move that forward, and kind of in a holding pattern until we can coordinate a little bit better with our committee that's chaired by that person at CCR&R. So that's where we're at. It's not a great solution, but at least, and unfortunately, I did learn in our Boys and Girls Club that they weren't, like what Janice referred to, they weren't taking anybody new this year. And so I think some of the programs where that's the case, it's hard if you haven't already had care. Where do you sign up? And we fill up so fast in our after school programs that there were only a handful of slots to even offer. So I think hopefully this granting process will allow the expansion, and at least through December help that problem. And then probably January we'll all be like, we're housing it again. So I don't know, but that's where we're
resume panic.
Yeah,
very nice.
At least we can
Thank you.
a little while.
There's no more a panic button. It's actually just a resume panic button now. Yes.
Good point.
No, that's awesome. I do think that I think we are getting better at this as I talk to more people in different systems. Like clearly this is getting more refined, and we're asking we're asking the right questions sooner. It seems like, what need are we not meeting? I do want to talk a little bit about that exclusion of folks that have not received care before. I had not really thought through this piece, but I am hearing anecdotally, someone told me that the senior class in Big Sky, it doubled in size. So it went from 17 kids to 35 kids. And they are folks who have second homes and are moving in and setting up shop. to enroll their kids in school there. And so that is not a very large community. I mean, you all know that a senior class of 17 people, that's a small school. And so is this something that anybody else is seeing? And do you think that that's the strategy that folks are using?
We just had, I think, 24 new enrollees at Alberton, which is unheard of. Like, it threw off their whole calculation of stuff that they were doing, which is 24 throughout the whole school, but for there, I mean, we don't get that many.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it is. So we're kind of seeing that too.
Okay. Yeah. And Janice and Amity, do you know if the Boys and Girls Clubs, was that what their aim was, knowing that there might be an influx, or there is even a typical summer influx in some of these places, that they were trying to just, you know, keep an isolated group, or it was just a convenient way to say, we can't serve, we have to put up some boundary. It can't be serve everyone. Here's the best we have.
Right. So my granddaughter was here all summer. She is 8. So I was in a lot of conversation with the Boys and Girls Club, because I really would have liked her to have had that to do while she was here. So their reasoning was for that social distancing. So the less kids we have in the program, they only have their one building. So the less that's there, the better and the safer the kids are. So they were it was in a process. So they started with first those kids who were enrolled during the school year could stay. Then in like mid-July, they opened it up to kids who had been enrolled previously in the summer for that, but that's where they stopped. So they stopped, and it's more because of the space and trying to not have them all crammed so close together.
Okay, just the space limitation.
Yeah.
And I think for us, it was space and staffing, you know, because they're trying to oversee smaller groups. In the past, that organization in particular, they have some really great spaces in our town, but they keep kids all together in one big area. So they were trying, I think, to separate them out, and it's just hard to do that with, you need more staff and more funding to pay for staff if you have fewer kids coming. So I think it was just managing all of those concerns.
All those concerns, so many new things. Thank you guys for talking about that. Let's see, who haven't we heard of? Sarah, do you want to talk a little bit about Great Falls and what's going on there?
You cut out for a minute. I heard Great Falls. Were you talking?
Sorry. Yeah,
okay.
I was wondering if you would want to tell us a little bit about Great Falls and what's going on with the schools there.
As far as I know, there's the option also where they can do online or they're coming back. And I know they're trying to keep exposure as small as possible, like especially for like say high school, middle school age, they stay just in one room and the teachers maybe come in there and they eat the lunch in there and have masks. And I heard dividers, but I don't know whatever was all finalized, you know, like because there's so many details at the end, but I do know that's kind of what they're doing so far. And they had to know, I don't know if it was by the end of July, maybe the first week in August, whether they were going to do online, you know, or come back to the building. And I don't know if they had to sign up for like the whole year, but I think it was going by semester, but not positive. And I know some of the smaller, oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, what have you heard a little bit about childcare and how that kind of piece is tied in, or if it is, or after school care as well?
I don't know about the Girls and Boys Club, or like we have the Community Rec Center and a few other places. I know more about the childcare because that's more the age I work with. And they still are enrolling kids. They're still have openings. Some have expanded. Some people sold, you know, their child cares, but other people took them over. So, yeah, don't seem to have an issue that I know of with that. Like, I mean, your normal issues, nothing too big, but.
Nothing abnormal.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like I mean, you know, stuff we've come upon obviously is with the COVID stuff. And, but the nice thing with like when we partner with them, they have all access to all of the resources that we have, and then we can try to help them with like one center did have a positive case and she chose to shut down just for a short while. And then we helped with what we could. And yeah, so it's very interesting, that's for sure.
It is, it is, it is. And then Megan, I know you are new to your position, but do you have any updates on how like coordination of school and like kind of childcare is happening in Helena?
Yes, I'm a little fortunate in that we've been talking about it a lot in our monthly meetings recently, though I'm mostly just familiar with the Helena School District plan. But they are similar to a lot of the other plans described, where there's a digital learning initiative that families can sign up for. And then they put together plans based on phases. So that goes from phase 0, where it's exclusively online, up to phase 3. So the concern is, what if it's the online or the hybrid models, how you account for childcare? And that's the tricky part, is because there really aren't a lot of slots right now in the existing childcare programs. And I think if I remember correctly, I think we lost 3, although 1 may reopen. So one of the kind of current plans that's tossed around is YMCA is expanding their after-school care program in our fairgrounds. And so that's going to be a larger option that's been offered to like county employees and I think other places as well. Though the tricky part there is there's no transportation between schools and this after school care, so it still kind of puts a burden on the parents to figure out how to get their children from school to the after school program, etc. Or during obviously the days where they are online, they still have support during the after school care program, where they'll be kind of coached through that virtual learning.
Great. Thank you. That'll be interesting to see how that works out, kind of some of those bigger pieces. And then Cass.
Yeah, I can jump in a little bit. We're having very similar to a lot of folks. In school is offered, and then virtual learning is offered. They're doing it with cameras in the classroom, so the teachers aren't overburdened by creating separate curriculum. There's smart boards in every classroom, so people who are doing the virtual option are actually attending virtually in the classroom.
Oh, wow.
And they shortened school day. Yeah, it's kind of cool. I don't know what other school districts are doing there, but I thought that was good. For teachers' sake, really.
Yeah.
They shortened all the schools days, so that's going to certainly be complicated for out of school care. And they are, of course, isolating elementary school kids in one classroom and keeping them with the one teacher the whole day. And then with middle school and high school, they switched to block classes, so they only have 2 classes at a time, so they're only ever exposed to 40 kids and 2 adults, and are staggering transitions to try and make that safe in the hallways, because obviously that's a big risk. And they're closing campus, so high schoolers, I'm sure, are going to be really excited to eat lunch with the same kids every day. But so I think they set up as good as they could. Unfortunately for this out of school care issue, we have a after school program, and it traditionally has been set up at 2 different elementary schools and served most of the kids that needed it. And the school district has kind of not wanted that to occur at the schools anymore. So I don't know if the new funding's maybe going to bring some increased participation with the school district, allowing that out of school care to happen there. But that's kind of been a worry. Luckily, on the child care front, we've actually increased the number of centers in the area. And we have 3 different current child care providers who bought new facilities in order to accommodate out of school care. And they're going to try to be exclusive to like one school. So they're going to do their best to try and keep kids from one school in one child care facility. The CCR&R is trying to help coordinate that. Obviously, that doesn't totally isolate them. So I think there's still work to be done there for sure. And we've had people like our 4-H club has stepped up, and they're going to provide out of school care to any member. And you can be a member just for the out of school care. So that'll be helpful, but they're looking for a building. What our school district, I don't know if other people have heard this, they're really worried about the busing, and they've had to shorten they'd have to expand their busing protocols. So like it's 2 miles away for elementary schools now. It used to be 1. It's 3 miles away for middle school and high school. For middle school, it used to be 2. Because they know they can only have the capacity to bus like 200 kids, which is barely any. So they're very worried about that piece. They're not sure how transportation is going to work out for people.
Okay. Awesome. That is, I will just say, I have not heard of any other online learning that is virtual attendance of the actual class. So I think that's kind of neat. So thank you for sharing that out. Okay, well, I think kind of just to wrap this discussion up, we just have 10 minutes left, and I want to make sure that we have enough time to talk about meeting topics or next topics. I mean, clearly space is an issue for lots of people. I think, you know, some more guidance will be coming out tomorrow about creating cohorts and as you're working with kids and how those cohorts can, like what proximity they can be within each other. So hopefully we can, you know, get some more clarity on what that can look like. Because I think space, funding for supervision, and I don't know, I think also maybe just people's time, the timing within it, and changing school schedules is going to be a determining factor. So hopefully everybody is ready to be nimble and responsive as always, because I think this will be an interesting experiment and how long it lasts out. So these are great. Thank you guys all for sharing this out. This is really important information. And I asked the folks that couldn't attend if they could share out. I know there was at least 2 of them who thought, yeah, I definitely want to hear this. And they were like, will you please record this meeting? Because this particular conversation is of importance. So just thinking about this, if there are things that come up for you, if you find something great that you want to share out and, you know, figure out how we can help one another in these instances, feel free to shoot that to me and I can shoot it out to the whole list, or conversely you can also email the entire list by just typing in the full name of the group that we're in, and you should be able to email us all. And yeah, I think it's a great way to go about this. Okay, all right, with our last 9 minutes of the day and the meeting, I really want to talk about future meetings. So we had this awesome habit of calling for suggestions and then voting out about what we would like to talk about in an upcoming meeting, and that has fallen off, but I'd like to readopt it because I think it worked pretty well. So I'm calling for suggestions for future meetings. Don't worry, I have a couple. Okay. So the 2 that I have, I think many of you, and I'm going to screw up their name, and I've already forgotten the name of the screener, but I think a lot of you on this call have been involved in. April, you might be able to help me out. Jess Mayer, what is the name of the screening tool that Jess and folks have worked on, the trauma screening tool?
It's the LSC, I'm trying to think of it. So it's a trauma screener, but they're calling it something different now.
Yes.
2 seconds and I can find it.
Okay, Anna, do you know?
Yeah, I think it's the Organizational Trauma Readiness Assessment. So linking systems of care. That's the title on the latest PDF I've gotten. So
okay. So there is that piece. Hi, August. So there is that piece of that work that's been going on for several years, and folks who are involved with the U of M have created a trauma screener that has been presented at a couple of different, I think, Best Beginnings meetings and possibly a Great Beginnings, Great Family meeting, and they have come up with some kind of a finalized screener. I think that they would be a great presenter to this group. They've got something really interesting. There were concerns about privacy in how they were administering that, and I feel like they found a really strong solution for that. So thinking about, you know, trauma screeners and asking about that, I'd love to be able to invite them. I think there's some great information. I got to meet with Jess. Anna, did you just recently meet with her? Am I wrong?
Yeah, and I think I just led
Yeah.
you all astray. I was talking about a different assessment that they have.
They've got two. They've got the organizational and then they have the
Experiences and
individual.
expression screener. Yeah, is what you're
There we
talking
go.
about. So that's screening
Yes.
for children,
Yes.
trauma experiences or expressions of having experienced trauma. And they did come up with a nice way to do that. That is would not require as much parental involvement, or you wouldn't be able to be subpoenaed and be able to say that this, had happened or not. We are working at Healthy Start with their trauma-informed organization assessment, self-assessment. So we are going to be kind of a learning community where each organization will be assessing their own program and then coming together to figure out what we need to do as a community to elevate all of our work and who we can learn from and all of that. So it's been a really good attractor to our group, just knowing that we're about to launch into this process. So sorry to mislead.
Nope, I was like, we'll get there. Yeah, so those are kind of two options from the same group that I think would be interesting, and just like what Anna is doing with her group, learn about that and then take that back to your group if that's something that would be of interest there. Additionally, I was also approached by Montana Legal Services Association about some community work that they are doing. I found it to be fairly innovative and really thinking about social determinants of health and how they can get more folks who need legal assistance, get that out to them, and specifically thinking about how we're targeting families and getting those resources out. So that was another opportunity that's been presented to me in the last couple months. Yeah, so are there any other suggestions that have filtered up as we talk about this? And they don't have to be something specific. It can also just be like, I'd like to know more about X, and we can figure out what we would like to do, but this is a running list, and so, yeah.
Well, I really liked the training by the Montana Advocates for Children. Was that what it was, the lobby training?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I guess one of my questions is just practically speaking, how do we do that? Not that how do you reach out to your legislator, I understand how to do that, but how do you inform them of a coalition in your community, and how do you include the members of the coalition but not make it too much so that legislators don't actually get anything? So I've just been mulling that over and trying to figure out, since they said this is the sweet spot time of letting your legislators know what this our best beginnings are doing in our community, but I've been trying to figure out, with our organizations already having so much to do, our partner organizations, I want to take on the bulk of doing it, but I also want to give them a voice. And if anybody else in any of the communities that participate in this have ideas, I'd love to hear from them to learn how to do that the best way possible.
I'm pausing in case there's anybody else who wants to jump in. I think one of the things, Annie, just as you pointed out, like one of the next step questions that folks had was, well, one, how do I go about this? How do I do some more concrete actions with my group? And then two, clarification on what's allowable within different groups, whether you're coming from a public health department or an independent nonprofit. So I think those are some good next steps that we can provide with this group, but we can also integrate that as well with another Montana Advocates for Children training as well. I know both of those lobbyists were really positive about that, and also excited to continue that. So if that is something, informing legislators coalition, and I'm just going to put it as allowability of activities for certain organizations. Okay, giving our 3 minutes time frame. Any other things that?
I was thinking a couple things. One, it'd be great for the local coalitions that have local Elevate groups.
One you all could teach out. Or?
Can you hear me? Okay.
Come back. Yeah.
Okay. It'd be great to. It sounds like Evelyn has moved on to a new position, And so I'm not quite sure the hole that's left in some of this work, but it'd be great to kind of identify that and be on the lookout for ways to keep supporting trauma-informed efforts. There's a group meeting at the state that talks about this stuff that I'm a part of, so I can make sure to connect dots as needed, but I thought that would probably be something to just have on our radar. And then there's a lot that we're learning about through the opioid or the substance use prevention task force. There's some really neat family recovery group activities that Steph and I have started to learn about. It'd be great to maybe in October, November, to bring forward some of the family activities that are connecting SUD and substance use prevention and ECC projects brought forward, just to kind of make you aware of potential new collaborative partners or resources to share. I think those would be really interesting to bring forward to the group.
I think so too. There's a lot of learning opportunities there, and I can think of what a nice way it would be to have Sarah saying Great Falls present in in partnership with the Alliance for Youth folks there and Sober Life folks. So thinking about some of those possibilities. Any other suggestions? I think we have 1 minute. All right, well, let's do a quick little vote here. If you can type into the chat or shout out which of these, you're thinking as, I'd like to see this one next. I will keep all of these on the running list for each month, but if there's something that's more pressing or like of serious interest, also I will take qualitative feedback on each of these. I love this, but in 2 months. Great. Okay. All right, friends. I will tabulate all of these and figure out what's up next for us. I do think that some of those, the advocacy pieces and that timing of that. Yeah, there you go. Megan, you guys heard from MLSA as well. Yeah, there was a lot of, we just need to give them more money as one of those organizations. I'm like, could I just give you some more money and do good things? I feel good about that. But I'll tabulate all these pieces out and figure out what's up for the docket for the next 1 or 2 months, and we'll go from there. Thank you all so much for making time for this today and every month. I missed you a lot, and I look forward to seeing you next month. And feel free to email back and forth in between meetings too. So I think there's a lot of possibility for that. Okay, thanks all.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Have a really great week and month. Yeah, thank you for all your hard work. Bye, August.
Thank you.
Hi, buddy. Oh my gosh, he's such a cute little squish. Thank you, Anna.
Yeah,
I knew you'd jump in with that screener. I was like, oh, I'm forgetting.
Leave, but yeah, good to see you.
Night.